I think next slide is Calabar. This is Calabar, 7 megawatts, whooping 7 megawatts, powering the university, the teaching hospital as well, University of Calabar. Next slide. So these are testimony that we received, and we picked this slide exactly from the Vice Chancellor of University of Alice Kweme University. This is Abia, right? Alice Kweme Indu Alike. Is it Abia or Ibonyi? Ebonyi, right? So he made a presentation to us, and what we found amazing to share with you is the numbers that he has put there. He mentioned that in 5 years, this power plant has been in existence for 5 years, and in 5 years they were able to save 630 million naira from purchase of diesel, and they also saved 1,170,000,000 from the tariff, from payment of electricity bill. And this was calculated when the band A tariff was not increased. So if you are to get the true reflection of this cost, you have to now times it by at least 250% to get the actual amount that was saved. And this power plant has been in existence for 5 years. Next slide. The next slide is also University of Makurdi, that has also been in existence for 5 years. The most interesting also things that were shared by the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic of University of Makurdi is that they notice that staff working at the university, they do come to work because of the sustainable electricity at the university. Not necessarily they want to come, but most of them, they do come with their charging points, charging lab, rechargeable lamps, whatever they want to charge, they will make them to come to the university, do work, charge it, then close from work. So this is something also, this is also a power plant that has been in existence for 5 years. Next slide. These are also intervention at the health sectors. This is University of Rivers Teaching Hospital, where I was there. This is an initiative that we started since the COVID period, but because after the elapse of the COVID, some of these institutes now repurpose the power plant to now power some critical areas of the university. At the university, the teaching hospital in Rivers State, the power plant is powering the incubation center, the accident and emergency, and the theater rooms. So these are some of them that we have deployed at Niger Delta. A total of 260 intervention has been done in both primary, tertiary, and secondary health centers across the country. Next slide. Apart from the education and health, we also intervene in agriculture, right? And in agriculture, what we do is to identify agricultural clusters and deploy an infrastructure that will optimize the production of agricultural activities across the country. And I shared this. This is a grant that we got from South Korea, where we are now working to build almost close to 2 megawatts, I think 1.7 megawatts. We identified these agricultural clusters around FCT as a pilot project for us to see the viability of this project. Then we will now replicate and optimize across the country. On that Rural Electrification Fund, when the ED comes, she will take you through some of these initiatives that we are doing. But these are agricultural clusters that we identified. We have done the demand and load analysis, and we are now started deploying this infrastructure. Like I said, we want to deploy a total of 1.7 megawatt across in these particular areas. Next slide. Next slide. I wouldn't like to bore us, but this is important just for us being people working within the energy, to just have the thinking that what we do, we don't just do because we want to give people electricity, but because of the belief that electricity has a direct correlation on key development aspect of the country. And this is a survey that was done to just look at what is the correlation between people that are excluded from financial services vis-a-vis the impact of electricity. And we now realize to see a direct correlation between lack of electricity and financial exclusion. At the same time, if you want quality education, quality health service, quality economic growth, quality water and sanitation, you have to provide electricity. So what we do is a catalyst to almost all the key sectors of the country's economy. That is why it's, as we are deploying our intervention, we have to see it. How does it impact education? How does it catalyze economic growth? How does it enhance quality of health services and so on? So this is the outcome of the that research. Next slide. Now, we spoke a lot about the Electricity Act, and I think the new Electricity Act is what created this conversation that we are having in terms of, okay, what should be the role of the state? How should the state subnational operate based on the changes in the Constitution and also the new Electricity Act? So we took this Electricity Act and diagonized it and find out what are the changes within the Electricity Act that affect the relationship that we have between us and the subnational. And key of the changes that we have seen are these 6 key changes. Of course, since morning, what we have been talking about is liberalization of the power sector, giving the subnational total power to operate in the entire value chain. And just like what the DAPE said, the distribution is even completely within the powers of the subnational. So this is one key change. The second key change is also the reaffirmation of REA as the custodian of national electrification strategy and implementation plan. And this is very important for us to understand. The Act having provided the subnational to operate within the ecosystem, now see that if you allow so many people coming in and operating within a particular purview, there is a bound to create confusion or disruption. And that is why now the Act now step back to say that, okay, in as much as the subnational should operate within this purview, we are going to give REA that power to now develop the national electrification strategy and implementation plan and be the custodian of that plan, which will now serve as the anchor and pathway of electrification. The plan would be from bottom up, then aggregated at the national level, and now serve as the blueprint and pathway for electrification across the country. And it will be from community level to local government level to state level. So this is something that would help us to tie how should we collaborate and should serve as the yardstick that will help us in collaborating across the country. Then the affirmation of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, just like Dape said, the Act said that all the states without the electricity market, the NAC will continue to serve as the regulator, but in the event they establish that, now will step back, state will take control, but now will still continue to serve as the regulator of cross-border electricity matters. Then there is also increased emphasis in renewables. If you look at the previous Act and the new Act, you will see that there is more emphasis on renewable in this new Act. So the drive to make sure that we make use of our renewable resources to create, to address the electricity access gap across the country. Then increase consumer protection. And the most interesting thing that I was sitting here when the whole discussion was taking place, and I was reflecting, I have not heard one discussion around consumer protection. It's more around tariff regulation, right? Of course, the regulation may be around the consumer protection. But when you look at the previous Act and the new Act, how the new Act has emphasized things around consumer protection, I was expecting to hear more, Ekiti State, we are trying to drive to create consumer forums to give opportunity for it, this, rather than more focusing on tariff matters. So we really need to go back and really diagonalize that Act and see more especially the previous and the new one, and what are the changes and what the new Act wants us to do more in that regard. Then lastly is the introduction of independent electricity transmission network, which before hitherto it was said that the transmission is within the purview of TCN, but now the Act has given the state that mandate. So state can embark on transmission project. I have been also asking, is there any attempt from any subnational in this regard to start to think about creating a transmission project? Because that will really break the barriers. Oftentimes, one of the greatest constraints in the on-grid is the distribution and transmission network, right? So how do we start thinking on creating mega projects that will require us to also build an independent transmission network? That hasn't been started. I believe, and this is where I will become a bit more critical to the state. I'm a covenant, my boss, Commissioner Ayo, is somebody that I so much give a lot of respect since when I was a rookie in Embed. And he has so much energy in that. So I'm also convert of subnational. But I'm also of the opinion that if we don't rethink all this energy saying that, okay, the subnational to take effort would still be a total failure. And I'm saying this with all sincerity, because it's the same old wine in the same old bottle that is just being moved around. And I took some note, for example. If the state continue to think that the business of providing electricity is the business of government, then that state is bound to fail, will never deliver any electricity. The business of providing electricity is the business of private sector. I was reading a document, 1 kilometer of transmission line, 1 kilometer. What's the rule of thumb? How much it costs? It costs whooping $1.5 million to build 1 kilometer of transmission line. If you go back, when the commissioner of Taraba was speaking, they have a total of about 54,000 square kilometers. Just imagine creating an independent network within Taraba, how much it will cost. It will bankrupt that state. The total cost of doing that will bankrupt that state for the next 50 years. True. Without even thinking of putting generation and this. So the first mindset, in my opinion, is knowing that the business of providing electricity is the business of private sector, not government. And what you need to do as a state is, how do I get this private sector? But to tell you, the reverse is the case, in my opinion, as ABBA, not MDREA. What we are doing is the reverse. We are even scaring the private sector. We have had different engagement with the private sector. We just did a roundtable in Katsina. The Katsina State guy was there. And you need to know what the private sector were asking the governor, were asking the state. Have we, when we are having all this energy to create regulation, to take over the regulation, to move, have we asked the private sector what exactly do they want? What do they expect from us? Hardly you hear us doing that. But we start to say, oh, we are giving. Somebody came to me, the state that started issuing out temporary permit and this. The people, the private sector came to me and they were really scared, saying that, oh, how do I do this? What, you know, you can see that. And secondly is also to ask the question that we have done result-based framework in the entire state. In my state, this result-based framework, I came from Kano State. We only had enjoyed 2 mini grids within the entire purview of $550 million. Why did we only enjoy 2 mini grids? Did we ask ourselves? The state that have received much more mini grids, did they ask themselves, why did the private sector feel comfortable to come to this state? Those that did not enjoy, there are many states that in the entire result-based framework, they did not enjoy anything. And I can mention the state. So do they ask ourselves why? As they are taking over this market, are they looking at this reason and deploying a system or policies to address that gap? We haven't done that. So that is also something of a concern with us. So I mentioned that self-reflection of project implemented. We have done the result-based for ages. There's nothing that has done. Also, There was also the question that the state have done so much in deploying rural electrification or electrification project within the state. Some of these projects failed. Some of these projects are in there. Have we also taken a reflection of this? Many states have the rural electrification board for a very long period of time. At some point, this rural electrification board are the EPCs of the state as when it comes to electricity. They do the entire project. Then they start moving to issuing out contract. Then they now start moving to not doing anything. They don't even get state allocation for them to do this. So have we reviewed this situation and see what are the things that needs to be done to change this? So I'm of the opinion that it's the same wine in the same bottle, and we are not reflecting that the private sector are going to be the drivers, and this private sector have more confidence in the federal than the state level due to, one, state financial viability, secondly also the politics at the state level. These are things that we need to also be conscious. I'm recommending that we need to be innovative in action, not words. I was listening to the Ekiti saying that the tariff, they freeze the tariff and they will continue to do that. And I was happy the Commissioner Legal addresses that question. That's a wrong assumption. If you take control, you have taken control. Total asset and liabilities, even besides going forward or backward, you are responsible for that liability. And there are also a lot of knowledge gap within the sector, right? So, for example, I was a pioneer staff of Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading PLC. Odion was there. We know how we struggle to get the talent that understand what even a PPA, power purchase agreement, and we say we want to take over, want to do mega project. Do you know what it takes Nigerian Bulk Electricity? Practical example, over 12 months to come up with the maiden PPA, which today it's also not effective, the Azura PPA, right? And we spent over $2 million to engage Horton and Williams, something like that. Odion, what's their name? Joy, you all know the history, right? Before we were able to get the TUR, right? So have you asked yourself, as you are taking control, do you have these technical capabilities to do it? Do we know people that understand put-call option agreement? Do we have people that would develop financial model of the tariff and continuously review this tariff model to be able to meet the changes in micro and macroeconomics? All these questions needs to be done. The securitization structure, the project financing are all expensive skills and competencies. Even REA that I beat my chest that I have funding of close to $1 million, I have to beg UNDP to give me a skill and competencies who are very good in project financing. Because these skill and competencies are not people that I can employ and pay. They are very expensive and there are very few of them. Just now they approved that skill and competencies for me to make use of. So it's important for us to have the thing in all these areas. No, I won't take more than 5 minutes. I leave Abuja, I fly business class to come here, I sleep, and you tell me 5 minutes. No. So in conclusion, I just sorry, boss. If it's my boss, I will have to step down quickly. So in conclusion, and I think this is something that AO would say. As we are thinking with taking over the market and the regulation, there are two schools of thoughts when it comes to regulation. The one that says that everything is allowed unless prohibited. And the other school of thought that says everything is prohibited unless allowed. Have that in your mind, because it can change the dynamics of how the private sector see things quickly. Next slide, quickly. Sorry, let me rush this out. Next slide. So the recipe is to go granular, to pick the differences, the different things within the state, and create a pathway for development of each state. So I give you an example. This is some of the data that we have started picking. If you pick Katsina, for example, Niger, for example, what we have seen is there are 794 potential mini-grid sites, out of which 132 mini-grid sites are in Mashegu local government and Peko, Mokwa, Borgu, all have 50 potential mini-grid sites. So we are using a geomapping thing. This is something that the World Bank financed us free of charge of over $10 million to engage the consultant that did the geomapping, narrowing down to granular, so that you have good data. As you are also doing your electrification plan or financial or economic development plan, you can use that to do an intervention that is targeted to the most effective and efficient manner. Next slide. So we did for all the states. This is Rivers. Next slide. Enugu, you can see 75 mini-grids. Here, what we also did is, apart from the communities, we also do the data analysis of agricultural sites across the country. So, for example, if you take Ogun, we said in a local government called Odeda, who is from Ogun State, the commissioner from Ogun. So there is a local government Odeda, right? Right? Within Odeda, there is a community called Olugbo. Within that community, they are farming oil, palm, cocoa, tropical fruit, cassava, and yam. And you can get an agricultural connection of 1,555 that can change the production, the agricultural production within that particular thing. And we even mapped that it's very close to Abekuta, that the produce can even be moved from that Odeda to Abekuta local government. And the same thing with all these states. We are taking this data, we are doing it. Next slide. This is some of the mapping in details, how we are doing the mapping, how we are capturing this. And all this data will now come, will give, each state will have its own plan, community plan, local government plan, the state plan, agricultural plan of the state, educational plan of the state, and the health electricity plan of the state. Next slide. So that is something that we are coming to do it. We have started some of the interconnected mini-grids. We're not looking at all just areas without electricity. We are even looking at areas with reliability, areas that need reliable electricity, that we need to do it. So we started having a partnership, tripartite partnership with the distribution company for semi-urban areas. And these are 40 mini-grids, interconnected mini-grids, that we are about to start rolling out already, and we will deliver on it. In this, we want to create close to 50 megawatt of additional capacity across the country. Next slide. So why should the state partner with the REA? As based on you to have this plan. Another thing is that plan will help you to access the funding that we have. We have funding, and this funding is private sector. It's first come, first serve. If you create an enabling environment for private sector to come here to state, they can come, build the infrastructure and come and take the grant from us. That is something that is very key and essential. So you should have the plan, partner with us for us to be able to deploy to address it. Then we have the rev. Please, we need 30 minutes to give ED to come and show something, 3 slides with this rev. Then the RESCO model. So as we are doing it, we are building ecosystem renewable energy service company. We don't want to repeat the mistake of on-grid. We are building companies with resilience, with capacity to continue to deploy this mini-grid private sector. That is the RESCO model that we are creating. And this company are there. When we had the roundtable in Katsina, the total funding portfolio of the people we brought to the governor of Katsina State was $2 billion. And we are going to have that of Plateau tomorrow. We will continue to have the other states as time goes on. So this is something that we need to be aware of to continue to leverage at the state level, because these people have tested it and they have confidence in the intervention that REA is doing. So continue other funding window, then continue to also create local content to make sure that the state harness the opportunities by creating local content channel within that state. Next week, we are going to start one RESCO Next, a capacity development employment opportunity across the country in the next week. Next slide. I'm rushing to do it. So what do we want from the state? One, is the state to partner with us in developing this national strategy implementation plan. The governors have already committed to this, so we want you to be aware of it. But it's not only that, it's to also ensure that you have structure within the ministries of energy that will own this plan and make it a live document. Because it's not just to have the plan has to be a live document, continuously being updated. As things changes is there. If you don't have a department responsible for this national identification plan, you should establish it. If you have it, you should populate it with people with competence. We'll come and train these people, take this data and get it done. Then the NESIP integration into state development plan. As the plan comes, as we are doing our yearly budget as a state, we have to take this data into cognizance to prioritize the areas of intervention. Then also we need to have focal person that we would be coordinating with to make sure that whatever we do is in line with what the state wants, with the state priorities and the state economic development. Thank you very much. Thank you, and please give the rep quickly 30 minutes to do. Thank you. Come, quickly, come on.
Thank you, MD. Good afternoon, everyone. Permit me to stand on existing protocol since we are rushing for time. We've spoken a lot of grammar here, talking about tariff, laws, how it affects generation, transmission, and I'm happy. One takeaway I have here today is what was presented by Commissioner Taraba, where she did give us the information that even if they have the money, there's no way they can meet up with building transmission line across the state. And that is just one state. Imagine if we have to do it across every state, which is the entire nation. That is why we need to start thinking outside the box. What else can we do to mitigate this electricity problem, to ensuring that maximum number of users of electricity is increased, that electricity finds its way, energy access to the rural communities, where over 100 million Nigerians live without electricity. I can tell you what REA is doing, because places that we have deployed mini grids in different capacities have witnessed change of lives. Most recent being 2 communities, and I'll be real quick about it. One in Bomadi, where the entire community lives 100% on green energy. No one single generator present in that community. They educated themselves. We brought in the energy. They made it possible for them to have the awareness on the need to have energy management, which most of them have perfected in. Another is a community outside Gwagwalada about 2 months ago, where we gave them access to electricity after not having been connected in any which way or form for over 100 years. Since the existence of that community, they've never had access to electricity. Those are the kind of interventions that I call interventions with human face, where we can see the real feeling, how people feel, how it's really upgrades their standard of living. And that is where REF comes in. Slide, please. So in REF, we have a project that is rural community oriented called Energizing Hearts. E for health, energizing health, energizing education, energizing agriculture, rural community, and transportation via e-mobility. It's a program called State Matching Program, where we intend to have collaboration with subnationals. All of you commissioners here, including commissioners for health, commissioners for agri, commissioners for transportation where present, are going to join us in a program called State Matching Program to be held December 18 to 19. And in that program, we will discuss what we're about to do. What you have now is what we have done in REF. We have been able to impact 12.4 mini-grids, 12.4 megawatts, a total capacity of connection 181,000, over 181,000 connections achieved. This we achieved through REF calls, through IMAS programs sponsored by the EU and German government. We have other programs sponsored by UNDP, UNIDO, private sector. Please go down so I can see. We have deployed over 112 mini-grids, 225,000 plus solar home systems. We have impacted on 149 SMEs, over 25,000 jobs created. Next slide, please. So this is the program I was talking about, where we will be providing 100 kilowatts of electricity to each community, 25 communities to be precise in each state. And we'll be concentrating on the primary healthcare. Primary healthcare system in Nigeria today, as we know it, is near collapsing because of lack of energy. Most of them, the structures are there. There are no doctors, and which doctor will want to work in a primary healthcare center without electricity? So we looked at it for the rural community to have that improvement in their lifestyle, improvement in their in health. We have to do something. And that is why we decided, instead of people traveling long journey, especially our pregnant women, looking for access to good healthcare system, it's better to provide electricity to already existing primary healthcare centers. So communities with healthcare centers that are functional, are in use, will be prioritized. Also, we're going to prioritize government infrastructure such as secondary schools, primary schools that need this electricity to be able to start teaching digital learning. So those ones, the distribution network in such communities will prioritize education system, primary healthcare system, and whatever that is left will be deployed into the community to have access to power. So general households in that community will be able to connect to electricity. Also, we have agro-energy. We have identified clusters of farmers of different crops in different communities. And their primary productive use of equipment, we have access to connecting to such a mini-grid. Most importantly will be the transportation. We know what having access to funds to buy diesel and fuel, what it means to rural community. How can we help them? That is why we decided to provide electric keke through e-mobility. Each community will have access to at least 20 to 30 electric keke with EV charging stations present in such a community. Next slide, please. Our plan is to partner with the states, the subnationals. It's going to be a joint program. When you come to our energizing, our program with the subnationals, we will give you exactly the blueprint on how to tap into this program. But it's going to be a partnership between Rural Electrification Fund and the states. The governors are aware, and the program coming up on the 18th is where we unveil the blueprint of exactly what is going to be done. But the partnership is going to yield what you have. The first phase of what we're doing will be to energize, like I said, 25 communities in each state. Our target is to deploy electricity to 3,700 communities across the nation. That will mean injecting over 370 megawatts into the energy space through renewable. But the first phase will be injecting 92.5 megawatts into the renewable energy space in different communities. It will give access to 24/7 powers to the primary healthcare centers. It will improve medical services. Each primary healthcare center will also have solarized borehole for access to clean water. Next slide, please. So when we do achieve this, we intend to, like I said, power 3,700 communities across the 36 states and FCT. We would have productive users of minimum of 7,400. It will create direct and indirect jobs of 92,500. Communities and schools and communities will have 3,700 communities, schools will be powered, 1,500 solar water pumps for the agri-business, 109 cold storage across every senatorial zone in the country, 108 solar-powered tricycles with 9 charging stations per state. I think this is a lot that we've decided to take on. But if we don't begin to have this conversation, solving these problems will not be there. So in order to close that energy gap that we keep talking about, we have to think outside the box. And we have to come up with programs that are community-based, programs that are rural community-based especially. The programs that my MD spoke of earlier on are peri-urban programs. We have the access, we have the mandate to dwell on underserved, unserved, and peri-urban areas. So now you're seeing the programs that will mitigate energy access in the rural, underserved, and unserved, and even the last mile. People who, no matter what you provide, you cannot reach them unless you give that community its own self-serving mini-grid. So when you do come to the program, there's a lot. So this is just like putting together the entire program in a few slides just to let you know what you will gain by participating in that program. Next slide, please. So REA will identify the stakeholders, which is yourself, of course, identify consultants who will work with the state and state government, develop the framework that we need to make sure that this comes to bear. We'll put up a template on how you can pick the sites that you want. Like the MD said, we have a mapping system that has been developed for us, and I can tell you we have the communities in each state that we think will gain from this has already been mapped out for us. However, you are the custodians of such communities. So we share the information with you to enable us know if this is actually what you want, or maybe you even want more communities that we have not identified. Next slide, please. Right, so the workshop is called a Stakeholders Engagement Workshop, collaboration with subnationals, that is you guys, working with Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agri, Ministry of Environment, and other ministries. Next slide, please. So, for example, one of the sites that we have is something that you have here. You see, it tells us where the site is located, which state, how many buildings we have in that site, how close they are, the distance from existing power network. Next slide, please. Next slide. It tells you the education facility in that community, the health facility in that community. Next slide, please. Right, it even tells you if it's even safe to go to such communities to grow this energy business. It tells you everything, how risky it is, how many insurgency things that have happened there, is it safe for a private developer to even go to that community. It tells you all of that. Next slide, please. Most importantly, it tells you, like the MD mentioned before, this community is called a Dagbo community. It tells you the kind of crop that is grown in that community. And most importantly, what I think you will find fascinating, it tells you the total crop value that this community can actually have access to. But as it is right now, they don't, because they don't have access to electricity. They don't have access to storage. They don't have access to transporting their goods. There's so many agribusiness that could grow should we bring electricity to their doorsteps. So what I will really ask and pray for is, let us start changing some of the discussions that we have. A lot of attention is paid to generation, transmission, the old way that we've been doing things. But we could do it in another way. We could think outside the box. We could think solar. We have 427,000 megawatts access to radiation in Nigeria. And I can tell you that we have not even begun to scratch the surface. Studies have shown that the renewable energy space in Nigeria alone, if we take advantage of it, has over $26 billion worth of investment, worth of money to be made, worth of infrastructural development, different things that we can bring into that space. So if we end this discussion or this forum today, tomorrow, without actually discussing how we can begin to mitigate energy access to the rural communities, then we have not achieved anything. Because I'm sure everybody here, every single person, is from one rural community or the other. And most of us sitting here are all politicians. So if you do provide electricity to the city without providing to your village, we have not achieved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you please upload that better, please? Thank you. We'll be taking a few questions before we move to the next speaker. Just 2 questions. Okay. Okay. 1, 2.
All right. Let me enjoy the permission of section to stand on the established protocol. My name is Omale, Honorable Commissioner for Power, Renewable Energy and Transport, Benue State. We're privileged to be here, and the purpose for which this meeting is put together is gradually unfolding and then realized in phases. Section 1, 2, we might not be able to comment on them until we get to general section, so that we don't lose track. Let me quickly engage with the presentation by the MD and then the ED of Rural Electrification Agency. You see, we started on a very sound and profound note of the need to partner and collaborate with ourselves with a view to bridging the energy gap that exists in Nigeria. And at every times in the lives of Nigeria, we are committed as a country to providing solution. Hence, the progressive transformation or transition that exists at several phases, leading eventually to the establishment of the Rural Electrification Agency with a clear mandate, to granting energy access to rural communities in Nigeria. Every other thing that is built upon it is exploring opportunity to achieving that mandate. And that was an ingenious establishment by the government of Nigeria, right? And it is in that context that, again, the power sector experienced another transformation by the amendment of the Constitution of Nigeria and eventually the enactment of the Electricity Act 2023, all again directed at granting energy access to our people. At this juncture, it was realized again that it is very possible that concentration of the energy market at the federal hands comes with a whole lot of challenges, and it's impairing that realization of energy access to our people, hence the unbundling of the power sector. With this unbundling, it is meant again to cause a tweak in every existing establishment or structure that existed hitherto before the enactment of the Act. And it also engender a new sense of relationship and partnership, all right? And it established the basic reality that there is no nation without a community. And that took us to that conclusion she gave, very resounding one, that we are all from a community. So again, this community are now, the component unit in subnationals. So therefore, if there is any federal government initiative or policy that is targeted at making life meaningful for Nigeria, it is going to be warehoused or scrolled through the subnational. So when we ask for it, before now it could be asking as a matter of privilege so that we can tap into federal government policy and initiative, but now as of right. Because as beautiful as every of our projects are, with this present regime in the electricity sector in Nigeria, you cannot just jump into beginning to carry out any energy activity in the state. It's not a session to berate us. You can hear states commenting or making presentation in session that their Ministry of Power and Energy is as recent as 3 months ago. So again, you don't expect them to begin to operate at the level that we want to envisage for them. We are moving and we have agreed to move and carry ourselves along. So whatever program we have, it's expected ordinary that rural electrification speak to us. Speak to us as a manager and a direct management of rural community who are, by the state's policy, positioned to take benefit of your programs. Rightly so, power is technical, power is capital intensive, and that nobody will tell us till tomorrow that the capacity to realizing that does not exist anywhere. Capacity abounds. It's either you create it, you export it, you buy it, you develop it, whatever means. And to achieving your mandate as rural electrification, I wouldn't want to say you berate us. You can't, that didn't happen. Is to position your activity in a context that the state can very well take benefit of what you are set up to do. We will not be confrontational. We will resist it. Because again, as subnational, we also have capacity to access funds to carry out our respective mandate for the benefit of our people in our several states. Yes, are investors comfortable to dealing with states? Not because of want of capacity. And if we use Lagos as a case study, nobody will want to go to Abuja to deal with Lagos states. They have built it. They have built structure over the while that as you come and you see the market, you can deal with them. And states are moving in that connection. All right? Again, we come into space such as this to also begin to hear of rural electrification activities and their program. There is a disconnect. We have sounded this repeatedly. There is a need to bridge that gap. We need to know. And recently, again, our attention is drawn to it, situation wherein you could see rural electrification sending notification to Ministry of Education, Ministry of Agriculture. Whatever you are doing is power related. Power is, all states are structured with line ministry, Ministry of Power. If I get an invite or a preliminary discussion to there is a program targeted at education, targeted at agriculture, targeted at enhancing this or that in my own state, and I'm expected to assemble, aggregate critical stakeholders, we will identify them and aggregate them. But there are conversations that are not having this recourse to, line ministry. We are worried about that. So please, as we re-emphasize the need for partnership, we expect to see that some more. All right? And again, most of this national policy that Rural Electrification Agency is putting together for us must be consciously developed to carry every state along. And that also includes the right conscientization to investors. Once there are energy markets in every state, by the law now we are creating them. Otherwise, our people desire access to electricity, and they do know of a fact that once they get it, they'll pay for it. If we can pay for, units to make communication, we can pay for units to have access to electricity. That consciousness or conscientization is at a peak. States have realized very well too that her role is that of enabler, creating an enabling environment for investors to come do business, with the ultimate goal to protecting investors so that they can have return on their investment, and with a corresponding protection to customers and consumers of energy output to have value for whatever they are bringing. So as you protect investors, creating that enabling environment to come do their stuff in your state, we also ensure that as you come do this business, our people should also get value. That's why you see every state that is making her law, and those that we make, we continue to make provision for no metering, no connection in our state. That is to ensure that customers get value. The states certainly know what they are doing. And as commissioner, you can see this is another meeting in furtherance of our commitment to engender peer review, so that we see what's happening in one state, another state can leverage on it, learn and agree on how to strengthen ourselves to serve our people better. And nobody should de-emphasize our commitment to achieving that result. So please, from rural electrification, yes, we have heard, mappings are done. We are all here, and I can tell from the account and story of every individual at one point or the other using GPS. And I also lost their route severally. So you can sit in the comfort of anywhere and use a satellite system to aggregate data and think these data are verifiable or conclusive in themselves. Say you have done mapping for us, and you will deploy for us. In that mapping, it also tells you communities that are prone to crisis. Yeah, so we say deal through the subnational, because if I'm seized of your activity in my place, as an enabler, it's my business to create that enabling environment, or secure environment for investors to come and do their business. Ensuring that, yes, we give you a place and the protection to doing it. In some cases, we are saying they are part of our equity contribution beyond creating an ease of doing business in our several states to achieving this ultimate objective of good governance and service delivery to our people. We'll be emphasizing from the forum of Commissioner of Power and Energy in Nigeria that the relationship between critical stakeholders or service providers in the power sector have recourse to the existence of this forum. It's a new development. It never did existed before the establishment of, or the enactment of the Electricity Act, save for very few states that were doing what they are doing, like Prof. from Ekiti, Enugu, and the rest were doing before now. So this forum was a conscious establishment by the Governors Forum, to which they create power decks to help coordinate subnational effort and initiative to step down federal government initiative as we pursue bridging the gap or creating energy assets for our people. We're going to come, yes, we have had interaction with Rural Electrification Agency in time past, before your emergence, and we desire that we meet again to interface and deepen that conversation some more, so that we will the first line of share of thoughts and make our input at how best activity of rural electrification can benefit our several states. We can also put on the table beyond that which you have done for us, because one thing about data, like we say, the value of data is in its verification. It must be verified. So whatever you have done, let's have it and verify it. And I can also tell you authoritatively at this juncture that yes, up to virtually every state have done sketchy work on energy audit or energy assessment to know where and where there is desirous of this intervention. We are moving at that pace because of paucity of fund, but of course we are creating the energy markets in our several states that will be attractive And learning on this, like you said, from your embed experience, we are all learning on it to making our state a viable power hub or power market for prospective investors. So I won't say this for and on the behalf of members of the forum. I will only urge that we bridge the gap, talk more with the subnational. If you talk with our governor, yeah, that's at the level of the president, the governor. But at the level of an agency, yeah, we are your line stakeholders. So let's deal more and then work together to achieving this core mandate, as lofty as they are. Our fear, if there is no decisive effort to introduce some level of parity in the distribution of the grants or resources that is available to you, you might have over concentration of activities in one place over and above the other. But that is not the intention of the government of Nigeria, is to create seemingly equal access to energy to all the subnational at the level that they can attract the step down of your program. I say a very big thank you, and then look forward to working together with the Rural Edification Agent. Thank you.
I think we'll just take two more questions. May I please implore the honorable commissioners, due to time, just keep our interventions pretty brief. Thank you so much.
All protocols. Firstly, just to assure I'm not going to be as wordy. Thank you very much, REA, for the effort at access to electricity, especially for the rural communities. I'm just going to make 2 points. Early this year, we had a very enlightening, engaging meeting at your behest, and there were clear takeouts. One of the big takehouses said it as a lawyer, whether you would talk with us. But presently, because of that lack of talking, we presently have a lot of double-legging and double-hatting. For example, I've just said you've done a geo-mapping of all of the entire rural communities across the states. I'm like, if we knew that, and this is riding on the benefit of UN-supported, World Bank-supported funding, which makes it clear, deep, and very informative. If we knew that, as a state acquirement, for example, we wouldn't go boots on ground, or at the very worst, we would have had that to add something to that. But we just started afresh to now start data gathering, which is the double-hatting and double-legging I'm talking about. That's avoidable cost. Secondly, you said you've identified communities and all that you're going to work on. How? Because we had a clear, confirmed rapport discussion and takeout that you won't come into any state without passing through the power desk in the state. And lastly, clearly, for us as Akwa Ibom State, I'm Commissioner for Power. And you say you have 260 interventions across the country. And there's none I can point to Akwa Ibom. We've actually had engagement. I made this point, your ears please. I made this point at the last engagement. And I said, look, talk to us. As I stand here publicly, tell me any date of your choice and convenience. Give me 2 days, and I, Camilo Zumo, will be in Abuja to have engaged with you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. So I would hand over to you to respond, sir.
So to quickly address the first speaker, you see, this is the talking. I had much more important engagement in Abuja, but because this is much more important to us, I had to leave to come, and that was why we begged. If you look at the agenda, we're supposed to speak tomorrow, but we have something important. We beg to be resolved because we really want to do this. And secondly, we also have written, as much as there is concern, we have written to commissioners of energy, power, energy, education, and health, agriculture in the state. It's our own way also of deepening the thinking. Even going to the NERC, we had to go to the vice president. And the vice president said that it is important for us to speak at the NERC and create a standing committee. Whether you think that it's at that level, we still believe that engaging with the NERC will help to make your work even easier as the commissioner. You report to these governors. And so any single avenue for us to deepen the way we speak, we talk, it's there. And I don't think there's any confrontation in any way between us. What we are saying is we build a relationship of husband and wife. We tell to ourselves the truth. You tell us, we tell you, right? And that is how we will continue to do this journey. Secondly, this mapping, the Akwa Ibom person, commissioner, the mapping, what we have showed is the glimpse of the initial mapping. Even the entire work has not started. The entire work will only start when these structures have been done. We are even in the process of doing it. We are leveraging on existing data and use the geomapping to extract this. What is coming out is not just this mapping, it's national electrification strategy and implementation plan for communities, for local government, for state. It's a much bigger work. It has never happened at this level in this sector, and that is what we are working to do. So it's to give a glimpse of what we are extracting based on the existing capabilities that we have. That is something that we would do. And it is also to create least cost electrification. It's a long discussion to give it to you. It's more beyond the data. It's more around strategy and implementation plan that is going to be done. But the commitment that I would like to give here on behalf of REA is this: we will bore you with this engagement. We have started engaging one by one. In fact, we feel that the forum may not have much more effective discussion time. See time how we have been harassed to quickly finish. And that is why we are doing state by state engagement. I bring the investors, the private sector, I bring the entire state structure, I bring the governor, and we sit in a day, we trash all the electrification need of that state. Tomorrow, like I said, we are having that of Plateau State. That was why we bring it this. Lagos State, we are in discussion to have them. Adamawa State, where is the guy from Adamawa? We were with you and the governor. So we are picking state by state. Cross Rivers, the same thing. Picking one by one to do it so that we go granular. Because the way we are thinking that at federal level we are doing it, we are not involving the state. The person in local government will tell you also, you at the state level, you are taking decisions, you are not involving him. The person at the community will tell the local government chair that he's taking it. So that is why we feel that we should drill down to the nitty-gritty to bring everything to do it. And I tell you, in as much as I'm here, as the MD of REA, we would develop each state electrification plan that will go granular from local government to communities, from communities to local government to the state, and that will be something that can be implemented. And equitable allocation of resources is something that will be driven by data. That is why it's important to have the data to know where the intervention should be and how it should be intervened. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we please applaud Mr. Abaliu for the clarification? Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. On this note, we've come to the end of this session. We'll be moving right to the next session, and it's going to be a discussion. We have a presentation by the UK Nigeria Infrastructure Forum. That's UK NIFE. They will be giving us an update on the National IRP and Strategic Implementation Plan, SIP. Join me as I welcome Mr. Eyo Ekwo, the team lead power component. Can we please put our hands together for him as it comes up to give this conversation?
don't know if there's a protocol because everybody here is a commissioner. So I'll just simply say, Honorable Commissioners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure this afternoon to make this presentation on behalf of the United Kingdom Nigeria Infrastructure Advisory Facility. My name is Ayo Ekpo, and I am the team leader for power in the UK NIAF program. I'll just say that I have an 11-slide presentation, but I'm going to speak only to about, just in the interest of time, maybe about 6 of them. And whoever is in charge of the slides, if you'll please just take us to the 4th slide, the one that talks about the objectives of the, yeah. So, what's an IRP? An IRP is an integrated resource plan. That's really what it is, basically. And what's an integrated resource plan? It's simply a document that brings together a huge amount of data around your available generation sources, your demand, wherever it's located in that geographical space for which the plan is created. And then it looks at, what it will take to build whatever is required to deliver energy to your people. And it puts it into a model and tells you where and how much and when, perhaps, that can be done. So that's basically what the IRP for the country is trying to do. UKNIAF is helping the federal government of Nigeria to put together an IRP for the country, the very first one. We've never had one before. What we've had are various ad hoc plans from time to time that focus on this. So what's the objective here? We are trying to provide a national grid that is sensibly constructed at least cost. Those of us who are here, we're all political appointees, we know that lots of times there have been decisions taken about siting transmission assets that are not based on economics at all, which is what really should be the case. We're trying to move away as quickly as possible from self-generation, which, as of today, is 3 times more expensive and 5 times more polluting than grid electricity. Provide a pathway for access to electricity for all Nigerians. Also, provide us with a platform that enables us to use our abundant renewable energy resources, particularly solar and hydro, with which, as we've heard from the IRA representatives, Nigeria is hugely blessed. And then lastly, this IRP helps us to meet, as a country, nationally determined contributions and the targets that are related to those contributions in terms of reducing emissions and enable us to achieve our energy transition plan net zero commitments that we've made that we say we'll achieve by 2060 at least cost. Next slide. So in terms of the IRP and policy, what's the connection between the two? The National Integrated Electricity Policy, which is currently being prepared and is almost in its closing stages. In fact, while I was sitting down here, I got a draft of that. I know that the NGF has, the Secretariat has collated feedback from states and has sent, perhaps, I think it was the most comprehensive set of comments on the draft policy that were sent in. We are supporting the drafting of that policy process. It's a process that started last year in December. It's been going on for about 11, 12 months now. And there have been many iterations, and I know that after the draft itself was put together, the largest single set of contributions came from the NGF. So the policy itself under the Electricity Act is supposed to be accompanied by something called a strategic implementation plan. It's understood now that that SIP will have its foundation in the IRP. So the integrated resource plan that we are putting together is one of the primary building blocks for the strategic implementation plan. So you can see the connection between the two. So in the IRP, you make a demand forecast. You look at a resource assessment, your generation resources. You look at the transmission plan. And at the moment, TCN is currently trying to update the existing transmission plan. And you put all that together into a model which gives you a number of options that tells you where across the country, ideally, given your resources and your demand, you would want to site new generation capacity and where it will be least expensive to do so. That gives you that box there about size and the type of investment that are required to meet your policy targets, which are in your electricity policy. And if you understand what I said just now, the SIP goes together with the policy, and the SIP is connected with the IRP. So it's almost like a mathematical equation, but really there is a correlation between these three documents. So if we go to slide 8, summary of results. No. Yeah, this one. So a lot of work has been done over the last 2 years in putting the IRP together, and we're finally at the stage where we have a draft. And that draft is going to be delivered this month. And what the IRP tells us is that between now and I think the date is 2035, we need to spend about 220 billion to meet our policy target. So that sounds like a huge number. But when you look at 11 years from now, 220 billion, about 20 billion a year, broken down across 36 states, perhaps it's achievable, right? Perhaps it's achievable, mostly in generation, because we understand that we have a lot of stranded transmission assets across the country. And so our greatest need is really, in terms of CAPEX, is in terms of generation, for most of which will be in the latter years, between 2031 and 2040. Right. Next slide. Next slide, please. So what's the connection between what the states are doing and the national IRP? One of the things that we haven't done so well is integrating states in terms of energy planning with the federal government. It's always been top-down. So you have an NIRP, the National Integrated Resource Plan, and I've just tried to very quickly describe the environment in which that is being created. But each state, as a subnational and a contributor to the national plan, is meant to develop its own IRP. I think, if I remember correctly, of the 36 states, just Lagos and I think Enugu have done something about this, and both states, with what is being done nationally, need to update. So an IRP is not a static document. It's actually a model, to be honest with you, that is constantly being updated as new data becomes available. Data about generation sources, data about cost of energy, data about cost of construction, data about where your demand is, which is a constantly fungible set of numbers. So what you have is that each state, hopefully going forward, will begin the process of developing its own IRP, which is largely a planning exercise. And the data that you pull from the federal government in its own IRP is reciprocated by the data that you push into the national IRP. And what you have is that there's a mutual sharing of planning data that enables our IRPs to be mutually supporting and also credible. Because there's no point having a plan which you use, but you don't have the kind of data that is required to ensure that your decisions, which is really what a planning tool does, it aids us with our credible decision making. Your decisions that you take are not tied to the realities on the ground. So we'll all agree that over the last 60 years, to be honest with you, we have been taking decisions based on our own small subsets of data and creating inefficiencies across the country. And so what we have today is the absence of a real environment in which you can plan. But with this, the expectation is if we are able to work together at national and at state levels, we should then be able to have a significant single national plan environment with 36 sub-national parts that enables us to ensure that the benefits of this data sharing, which is our investment flows are a lot more conscious. People can take more conscious investment decisions about where to spend, how to spend, and what to spend on. We can collaborate better with TCN on transmission linkages. Many of us know that a lot of the investments that have been made by TCN historically have not been as efficient as they should be. And we also are able to accelerate our electrification and enhance competition at our various levels. So with that, I would like to also speak to another part of this, which is the next slide, please. Whoever is in charge of the movement of this thing. Next one. Subnational markets, right? And I'll try to speak presently to the correlation between state markets, national markets, and the IRP. I'll address that, I think, in the next slide. So what states might be doing or could be doing, or what they should be doing in terms of subnational markets. One thing that has, to my sadness, permeated almost every meeting that I have seen between the states and the federal government is there's a lot of talking down, right? And let's be honest with you, it's something that we've all experienced. Federal government and federal government MDAs have a superiority complex, right? And they feel that they can tell states to do what they think is the way it should be done. That patriarchy doesn't work. Someone said here that states are powerful, and they are powerful. States can decide to do what they want to do. If they fail, yeah, they may fail, but it's what they want to do. But we don't want any state to fail. And so what should the states be doing? I would have been happier if we had talked about this kind of things. We need to invest in human capital. The reality is that many of us came into this sector for the first time when we were appointed as commissioners. And there's nothing to be ashamed about in that. Once upon a time, there was no NEC, right? In one of my past lives, I was in charge of power sector reform in the BPE. The Electricity Reform Act, Power Sector Reform Act of 2003 was drafted by my team. All right? BP was set up with a plan that was developed by my team. We know that the first commissioner of BP, only one had any kind of experience about the power sector, but they had to be commissioners. The first set of staff of NERC came from BPE. None had any experience in regulation. So it's not as if the people who are in Abuja were born with this superior knowledge. All right? It's experience. But there was a time when they too started. And you know what? When they were told, like people are being told today, that you can't do it. And yet they've been there for, what, 2006, 18 years now. And they're still there. Right? So let's understand that the difference is how we invest in our people. Okay? We can actually aggregate capital. We can put it behind training people. We can select the best that we have. And it doesn't matter about whether I have experience or not. Right? And we train them. And we should do that. The training that is available at various levels in various parts of Nigeria and outside Nigeria where we can train people. So human capital development. We've got to understand our various interests as stakeholders. So in a state like Nasarawa State, or Adamawa State, or Taraba State, where you've got lots of hydro resources, right? It's not necessarily the same kind of thinking that would determine how you design your market as you would for a Lagos state that is almost a city state, right? Even in a Bayelsa where you have dispersed communities, they are riverine. But in Taraba, perhaps, you also have equally dispersed communities, but they are at much higher levels of the geographical scale. So the solutions you might want to devise are different. But we've got to understand those interests and leverage our local resources. Develop state frameworks that are tailored to meet those individual market dynamics, and then methodically implement electricity markets in collaboration with NERC. Now, on the next slide, I'll talk about what NERC might be doing or should be doing. But there is something that we need to do, and which is we need to get NERC to understand that this is not happening because they are bestowing a gift on the states. This is happening because there is a mandate in the law that says that NERC should do certain things, and I'm not sure that NERC has really done those things yet. And they're going to collaborate across the states. So we tend to think as states that we are part of geopolitical zones, which is true. But in terms of electricity, we are not quite in geopolitical zones. We are covered by discos. So we should be thinking along the lines of who are we that are covered by just disco, right? Covered by Abuja disco. It cuts across the North Central and some other region. Port Harcourt disco, or typically Benin disco, We've got states in the southwest and states in the south-south, but under one disco. Maybe we should move away a little bit when it comes to electricity from thinking along the lines of sub-regional or regional groupings to groupings of discos, right? And we understand and bring together our interests and try to make sure that those interests work for us together. Next slide. And that's my penultimate slide, and then I'll be done. So what could NERC be doing? I was sitting down and listening when the Commissioner for Legal in NERC said he thinks a date, one of the things that we didn't do right was to have a date when we would sunset and compel states to take over responsibility. What he didn't say, which he could have said, was that the act actually does that. If you look at section 230, subsection 2 or 3, I think it's 3, it says that when a state comes to NERC and says, we have done a policy, we've done a law like Ekiti or Enugu or Kogi or one or two other states have done, it is obligatory on NERC to do what? Not to issue an order, but to issue a draft order, and a draft order that says what? Sets out a timeline and actions that need to be taken. And I think that you as commissioners need to take a look at this law again and actually dimension and understand that the first obligation to act is on NERC. Now, we can't have timelines and actions to be taken without data. Who has data in this industry today? It's the DISCOs, it's TCN, and it's NERC, all federal government regulated, non-regulated by states. So there's no problem with the sunset, but you've got to understand that you can't determine a sunset until you shared information, right? So I think that there needs to be, sorry, can we have that thing up again? There needs to be a clear-cut regulatory transition plan. And the transition plan cannot be developed without data. And data has to be released by those that hold it. You can't hold on to it and then tell me that I'm making a mistake or I'm doing the wrong things when I don't even know. I mean, how many of you commissioners for energy today, and I'm not saying this in a derogatory manner, know where the boundaries for your states are located, technical boundaries for your states are located? How many? Okay, Ekiti State. You know. How many boundaries do you have in your states? I know in Akwa Ibom, because I'm quite familiar with that one, there are 4 boundary points. There should be meters at each of those boundary points put there by TCN so that you know how much energy came into your states on any particular day. Without meters, you don't know how much your state consumes, how much your state takes from the grid. You have to depend on data from someone else, right? Something as elementary as how much of this particular commodity enters my state on a given day, you don't have because NEC hasn't told you. And yet, NEC is saying we want to sunset. You can't sunset, and you shouldn't sunset until you give me a plan that says this is what you will hand over to me. Customer numbers, locational data, border technical information, right? What actions have been taken in relation to any disco in the last 1 year, 2 years, 3 years before today? What licenses have been issued? What kind of reports have been delivered by these discos, to NERC? Reorganizing the discos, right, is something else that I think needs to be done. So even though there are 11 discos, there aren't 36 discos. But we know that there are supposed to be 36 discos. Nothing stops NERC from saying to the discos, all right, we know that there will be state markets one day. You need to start to report. You need to start to behave on a state-by-state basis. So go and incorporate subsidiaries for your states. We're not handing over anything yet. Just simply incorporate them so that each state government, each state regulator knows what is being done in its state by the DISCO. So except for Lagos State, really, no other state in this country can say, this is what, let me plug Jigawa, right? Jigawa can't say, this is what the Kano Disco state subsidiary has in my state. These assets, this balance sheet, this P&L. This is how much energy it receives and sells on a daily basis, how much it received and sold on a monthly basis, how much it received and sold last year. It can't say that. until someone says to the state or to the disco, incorporate one subsidiary for each of these states, create a balance sheet and a profit and loss account. Then we'll know how each state or how each disco performs in each state, and then report on that same basis. So it's easy to talk about sunsets, but you really shouldn't be talking about the sunset until there has been a data exchange and specific, deliberate actions taken at the order of the federal regulator that the discos are still answerable to at this point in time. Third, minimum capital requirements for discos, they've not been specified, right? Enabling effective collaboration and avoiding scaremongering. You know, I remember the very first meeting that was held in July last year. Many of you were at that meeting, and I think you still remember better than I do what the experience was like. Commissioners were being told, you really, in one sentence, you really can't do this. You shouldn't even think about it, right? That's what you were being told. And today, here we are, 12 months later, we're still standing. It's NEC that hasn't really told us what it needs to do. So I'm not sure that trying to scare states is productive, because states actually have power. Whether they know it or not, they will exercise that power. And it's better for all our interests that that power is exercised in a way that is productive for everybody. The final point is something which is really peculiarly within NEC's own responsibilities. When we look at the Electricity Act, we will see that two kinds of markets have now been created. Before the Act, we had a single national market. After the Act of 2023, we now have potentially two types of markets: state markets and the national market. National market is still and will always be regulated by NERC. We also know that the national market is one in which it is from which all the states are taking the bulk of the energy supply. And so if that market will continue to subsist, it is obligatory on the federal government to make that market grow. NERC, no one in the federal government has yet said to us, this is how we intend for that to grow. That's what the IRP does. So I was saying that there's a connection between everything I've been saying and the IRP. The IRP is a document that says this is how we expect this market to grow, given what it is we know about generation sources, about demand, and about costs. And it is for the state to then locate itself within that plan and narrow down for itself the data that is specific or locational to that state and say, well, this is how we fit within that plan. So that in a nutshell is what we would have to say about state markets and the subnationals and the relationship between the federal and the state government. We think that it's really for states and NERC to respectfully, collaboratively align their plans. It's okay, to have a federal plan, but unless that plan is one in which the states have been actively participating in putting it together, it's not going to go very far, right? I listened to the executive director from the REA, a lot of plans, but when you sit down in a gathering like this and you speak about locations in states that commissioners are not aware of, then I'm sorry, but work will still have to be done to make that plan actually fit within what the states want to do, or else it's still a federal government plan, right? But it has to be a national plan, and a national plan is not the federal government. National plan is the federal government and the states. Then it becomes a national plan, right? But for the moment, I see these plans as federal government plans. They've got to get the states buy-in, and active buy-in at that. Second point, capacity development. Just to summarize, ladies and gentlemen, then I'm done. Strategic capacity development and methodical implementation is critical to success. That's the final slide. And I think that collaboration is something that will pave the way. Genuine, and again, like I said, respectful collaboration is what will pave the way for us to enhance access to electricity, access to electricity and economic growth. I wish I could have said more. I wish I had a little bit more time. Then we could have taken a little bit more time to drill down into these things. But thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we please applaud Mr. Eyo? Thank you very much, sir, for that presentation. We'll be moving straight to the final presentation for the evening, and I will be inviting to take us through the implementation of the Presidential Metering Initiative and other energy initiatives within the state electricity market. And to do that for us, on behalf of the Special Advisor to the President on Energy, I would like to invite Mr. Lawal Lawal. Can we please applaud him as he comes forward to give us the final session, and thereafter we might take a few feedbacks. Thank you very much. Please let's applaud him while he's coming so we can help us do this in good time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I stand on existing protocol. I'm here to deliver the presentation of Mrs. Olu Vehian, the Special Advisor to the President on Energy. She regrets her inability to be here due to short notice and prior engagements. My name is Lawal, and I'm going to run through the presentation as quickly as I can. However, I hope that it will be interactive enough for you to give me some feedbacks, as we have been wanting to actually meet with state commissioners of energy and power, as we have done with the state commissioners of finance, as we have done with the NGF Secretariat, as we have done with the governors themselves. The Presidential Metering Initiative is the plan of Mr. President, where he has personally wanted to see the elimination of estimated billing in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. If I may pause, while earlier in the morning everybody was applauding our able governor, the governor of Lagos State, and other people that have contributed dearly to the current state of affairs, I saw a clear missing out of the actual champion of the current reforms in the electricity sector, who is none other than the president himself, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The bill that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signed in office upon takeover, the first bill that he signed was the Electricity Act. And it was deliberate. He was deliberate, and he wanted it to be clear that electricity is a major focus of his administration, and he personally follows through all the events in the sector. Having said that, the president has a personal ambition to see that the electricity metering gap is closed, and the current 5 million gap, 7 million gap in the electricity industry is being closed, as we currently have just 5 million customers that are metered. Therefore, the president assembled a team led by Mrs. Olu, and we have been engaging with different stakeholders to ensure that we develop an execution plan to see that we close this 7 million metering gap. It is our intention to close this 7 million meters, as well as deploy every single DT to be metered across all the electricity network in the country. By doing this, we hope that there would be incremental revenues for the electricity industry of over 2 trillion over the next 3-year period, while also attracting investment in the power sector. We hope that this investment will also see closure of gap of the collection losses down to at least 12 to 15%. And with this, the president also wants to change and abolish the current recessive direct transfer, subsidy transfer system to a direct cash transfer system where customers are subsidized through their individual accounts where they can make direct transfers. And this system is a collaboration between NAC, Federal Ministry of Power, Office of the SA Energy, NIMSI, Federal Ministry of Finance, and a few other stakeholders. It is important, as I sat earlier with some commissioners, I was getting feedbacks around what their thoughts are on subsidies. I was expecting the presentation by Commissioner Ayo to have touched on key things like subsidy management currently in the system. I will still pose that question as to how subsidies will be treated, and we want to get the feedback in discussion and probably a writing at some point. Currently, approximately 56% of customers remain unmetered. It has provided a great displeasure of customers that are not able to pay for electricity services because they do not know their exact consumption and they do not feel that their consumption bills are genuine and realistic. This also hampers the growth of the electricity distribution companies because the customers are not able to pay, justifiably in some cases, for the electricity that they use, and therefore it becomes a problem in the total revenue collection for the electricity industry. We currently have the discos losing about 30% of their revenues due to insufficient collections. The current state of metering provides over 1.2 trillion naira losses, and the desired state is to have at least 615 million incremental revenue apart from these losses created to ensure that customers do get value for money while also ensuring that there is liquidity all the way to the gas producers in the industry. The previous metering schemes have only installed about 2.5 million meters between 2013 till date, and these are the CAPME, the Vendor Financing Program, the MAP Phase 1, the NMMP Phase 0, as well as the current DISREP that is ongoing. The DISREP was stalled until the coming of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, wherein, as at last year, it was suspended due to court activities, but the DISREP was only approved in the external borrowing plan in 2024 Appropriation Act. We take pride in seeing that we helped resolve that matter, and we currently are looking at deployments to start anytime between February and March. That is first quarter of 2025. There is a direct link between metered customers and DISCO ATC and C losses, wherein we are seeing DISCOs like Echo DISCO, Ikeja DISCO, Abuja DISCO, having the least ATC and C losses, while also having the lowest metering gap across their customer base. The DISCOs with the highest ATC and C losses, such as Kaduna, Yola, and Kano DISCOs, have the highest ATC and C losses, and therefore this correlation and causation is clear, and we do believe that metering must be done right and must be done for every Nigerian electricity consumer. The current plan to ensure that we deploy meters for every Nigerian would ensure that it addresses power supply, nationwide deployment, and data integrity. I'm happy to have heard in one of the last slides of Commissioner Ayo, where he talked about data integrity and the fact that a lot of you are unable to plan and do a lot of your activities because you don't have the data, because the distribution companies do not provide those data, as well as the National Regulatory Agency, the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, unable to provide that data. I don't know whether it's unable or unwilling, because some of that data is available. The power supply, nationwide deployment, as well as data integrity are activities that we are sure that the Presidential Metering Initiative will cover and would provide value to every Nigerian citizen. The benefits of metering to NESI ensures that we close the financial losses for government, the shareholders, the consumers, and other parties, while improving load management as well as enabling efficiency. It will also facilitate infrastructure planning across the states and federation. It will also allow focus on the upper side of the value chain, that is the generation and transmission, who are bleeding on a daily basis. The current state versus the desired state of our metering plan is to ensure that we have full smart metering, which will ensure visibility into the activities of every consumer, to ensure that energies consumed are being paid for. The PMI smart meters are a build on the DISREP metering system, metering specifications. After the NMMP and the MAP, we want to ensure that we do not disrupt the technical specifications widely, because a lot of the manufacturers are able to create test benches. So changing that system would end up just creating additional cost to the end user and to government as well. The major difference that we have in the PMI technical specifications are the communication system. And what we are doing is to create a new umbrella of communication across the whole country, so that every meter that is being brought by any state, any disco, or any individual is being able to plug into an existing communication system, just like the GSM, but being created on a grand scale. It will provide low-cost communication backbone to be able to communicate across the head-end system and the meter data management system. The plan is to ensure that we have visibility from the grade 330 down the 132 down to 33 kV to 11 kV to the DTs, as well as ending up at the end user meter point, the single and the three-phase meters. The deployment plan is to ensure that we have at least 2 million meters installed next year, 1.7 million meters the year after, and at least 1.5 million meters in the third year of the program, thereby closing the current metering gap. This is exclusive of the DISREP meters of about 1.45 million next year, and another 1.7 million as DISREP 2. On the evolution of metering prices, we want to ensure that the current metering price discovery of the DISREP is adhered to, wherein we had more than 100% decrease of the cost of meters over a period of 2012 to 2023 across both single phase and three phase. We want to ensure that this metering price keeps falling due to economics of scale. The national metering, the presidential metering plan is governed by a board chaired by the NGF chair, the current governor of Kwara. It also has the chairman of the commissioners of finance, the ministries, the federal ministries of finance, Ministry of Power, Ministry of Budget and National Planning, the special advisor to the president on energy, who is the head of the secretariat, as well as the special advisor to the president on revenue. Also has the representation of NERC, MOFI, as well as 2 private sector representatives. The presidential metering plan ensures that we are going to use only the fit for purpose meters to ensure that every single Nigerian gets metered, and we do it as fast as we possibly can. The intervention of the states has been pivotal for us because we do believe that at the end of the day, these consumers are not just DISCO customers, they are actually residents of individual states across the nation, and therefore it is important that the state governments actually have a say in how this program runs, and we are happy with the continuous support and leadership of the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, who is also the chairman of the board, by his insightful leadership as well as direction in which this program goes. At the end of the day, we hope to see that the commissioners provide us with intellectual and leadership support to ensure that when we get to community relations, we engage with these communities in a very positive manner, wherein we get to meter efficiently and as soon as possible. We thank you very much for the support, and we wish to continue to engage continuously with the state governments as well as the distribution companies and other stakeholders across the Nigeria electricity supply industry. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much. We'll take a couple of questions because I know a number of commissioners are very interested in this. So we'll take the first 3 questions. Ondo, Kogi, and Ekiti.
Thank you.
Don't do like the last speaker.
I'm Engineer Razak Obe, Ondo State Commissioner for Energy and Mineral Resources. What I want to believe is the current meter acquisition fund is a kind of solution to previous initiatives. We're also aware that the same discourse who have over time demonstrated some nonchalance when it comes to metering. I see some of the vehicles that the FD intends to employ to transport this. I'm happy to see your head shaking. What I want us to do is to do everything we must do to mirror what the president is thinking about subsidy, cascading subsidies to the account of the last user, of the end user, and not through any medium where all manner of compromises will violate that intention. Our expectation is get your meters. I understand some meters are coming in December and the rest in 2025. When they arrive, work with state governments. Let's pull these people. Ondo is doing that already. We have a model which is working. We've been able to pass thousands of meters to our consumers recently through an initiative we call Odatiwa Metering Plan. If you do that, let people receive their meters. Let that process of getting meters installed be also stewarded, perhaps adding a timeline. After receiving and you have an interface you can relate with, within a week or 2, then the DISCO should have that obligation to install. With that, it won't take long before this metering crisis in the country will become a thing of the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I may quickly respond, the current presidential metering initiative is divergent from the meter acquisition fund in the sense that the meter acquisition fund comes out of collections of the electricity distribution companies on a monthly basis. What we have done is to actually go out and source for financing, secure it, and to be able to procure these meters to also deploy them, yes, in collaboration with, but not under the direction of the distribution companies. Every single meter is going to be tracked, right from whether you manufacture them or, I mean, if you say you import them, we would track them. Everybody here is aware of what happened in the NMMP, and therefore we would not allow that to happen again. Every single meter is going to appear on the dashboard before it gets into the customer's premises. And therefore, we would try as much as possible not to allow the discos to dictate how that process is going to occur. So we also learned of the Ondo deployment. We would love to know more, and if there's any written documentation of some sort, some report, some presentation that we'll be able to learn more about it. Otherwise, a meeting would do, virtual or physical. If you would have us come over or you come over, we would love to now tap into what you're doing. But be rest assured that I've discussed with Odeon and the chairman last time we met, some last month or two, that we've been looking forward to this formal gathering. We've had this more than twice, I think, with the commissioners of finance, because they have a monthly forum. For them, it's easy. But for you, that this seems to be that like an inaugural, we are happy to collaborate and see how we can do. So next question, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm Engineer Mohammed Abdul Muttalib, Honorable Commissioner for Rural and Energy, Kogi State. Incidentally, I was part of the team that ran the meter program, which was deployed 2021-2022. Then I was in AEDC. And part of the answer you provided to his question has actually answered most of the things I wanted to bring out. But I have one single thing I'll ask you. If these meters are to be passed through the discos, because about 1 million from the reports, I read the necessary report, I think it was 40%, either 40 or 41% success. The necessary report on
For the NMMP?
Yes.
No, that 41% talks to the current metering rate. 12 million against 5 point something million, not the NMMP. NMMP got about 90-something% success rate.
I doubt that. Because about 1 million meters were deployed in Abuja.
Okay.
About 1 million. And as at that time, I cover a wide area in Abuja. Let's just the story be buried on how the meter went around. This is it. The state law for Kogi State, because Abuja Disco has Nasarawa, Kogi, Niger, then Abuja, right? The belief is that, look, I will take my meter to where I know I will get enough revenue. If you go to Maitama, you go to Asekoro, fully metered, right? In that scheme, I can bet you that we didn't have up to 200 meters sent to Kogi. So now, if you are routing it through them, and they are the major service provider in Kogi State, and we have our law. So how are we going to expect Kogi people to get their meter? And again, somebody talked about band A, band whatever it is. The story around Band A, Band B, Band whatever started from Abuja with the intention that, look, you give energy, constant energy to people they are willing to pay. But the whole thing is upside down now. Nobody is actually supervising the delivery. But what is being done is that the 33 kV line has X number of hours of supply. Did the supply get to the customer? No. But you have placed this customer that is unmetered on band A, and you're asking him to pay for energy that he did not use. Right. So if meter were available, yes, you will say the meter count what you use. So many areas that are in my state that are placed on band A, they are suffering this now. So if you are going to give meter, there must be a deliberate design that the states will be in collaboration with you and the service provider. And the last question is this. We are expecting new players into the market. So if the meter has to go through AEDC, will the AEDC allow the new player to have access to the meter? Thank you.
So let me start with the last. Okay, another question. Prof.
Thank you, the representative of the advisor. My state has 19% metering, the lowest in the country. And that's because somewhere, somebody decides the total number of meters that will be provided in the country in a given year. Because that's really what happens. Because the cost of the meter is going to be factored into the, what do you call, MITO. So they decide the total number of meters in a given year. They decide the cost of the meters in a given year so that they know the total amount of money that will be spent in the given year. They decide the total number of people who are likely to get electricity and then add that into the MITO. That's really how it is. And so somebody makes a decision as to the total number and the number that goes into a particular state. And the discos too have a stake in the matter. Even NERC has a stake in the matter. What we must do is take out the discos entirely from this issue. Short of them, after NEMSA has certified the meters and the discos say this will work on their meter, they should get out of the way because they are not meter access providers. They are discos. And the customers should be allowed to deal with the maps with the intermediation of the regulatory body to protect both sides. And that's what we are doing in Ekiti. Okay? That's what we are doing in Ekiti. We knew about Ondo State's issue. But we have registered or licensed 5 meter access providers. And our first round is to assign each meter access provider to each of the communities, 500, 1,000, and so on. Mojek is here. We actually started with the community of the governor and my community. So that we can actually ensure that if there's any problem, because it fails sometimes, but the governor's community, they had no electricity for a while. And Mojek was able to deploy, how many? 800? 1,000 meters there. And they have it, and they pay their bills, and they're all happy. Many of the other, so we now have several communities, including today. So Mojek is applying, Protogy is providing us, MOMAS, all the biggest maps licensed, came in to be licensed, and they're happy. And anyone that cannot provide will just go to the next one. So there's even competition between them now. My point is the following, that we must get the maps out of the discourse out of the way. Let the people, that is the consumers, own. I mean, that may be where we actually have issues too. But we have indicated that the customers should own these meters, and if they move house, they should be able to move their meters with them. And they just tell the discos that this is where they are. Thank you.
We'll take this first set of questions. There's another set of questions coming. That will be the final one.
Okay, so let me take Prof first and say that 19% metering rate sounds very abysmal. At the PMI, we have considered that customers live in states and communities. And that is why the major focus for us right from the start was inclusive of, or it was in collaboration with the Nigerian Governors Forum. I've stated this, and it's been that right from the start. Your Commissioner of Finance has been very, very helpful in this regard. The difference between this and the previous allocation, as you would have imagined, is the fact that we are looking at the entire gap of what is unmetered. So there won't be any, so where you're talking about prioritization is because it's not complete. You're not looking at the 100% of the unmetered, but we are looking at the 100% of the unmetered. The only issue might be, when do you get metered? But it has to be within the next 3 years. In fact, almost all of you here are politicians, so even though we are technocrats, I would say that the aim is to ensure that we do this before the next elections, because we don't want our work to be hampered by your work, which is politicking. Because in the next 2 years, you would be in the season of politicking. So our plan is to ensure that we deploy as much as we can before then. And that would help us, because there won't be the cry about having this community and leaving that out, maybe due to political expediency or so. But we know that there would be a first and there would be a last. But we ensure that every single community is actually metered. That is why we want to ensure that every DT is metered, so that the issue is not around community itself. It's even DT. When you come, you meter every single consumer there, and you move on to the next. And that brings me to the issue about banding that Honorable Commissioner from Kogi talked about. We want to ensure that NAC changes their mode of thinking around banding, because as you rightly stated, a feeder that runs probably 100 kilometers would have maybe 10,000 customers, and they are all banded because the beginning of the feeder is being metered, and that is what NAC looks at. That's what the DISCO looks at. Meanwhile, your transformer that is being load shedded is not provided that 20 hours or whatever number of hours for that band. But if that transformer was metered, you would have sent the signal, or you could actually calculate from that transformer. The choice should be for every customer to have that meter. But in the meantime, because you have 100,000 transformers in the country, so meter that as you meter every other person, so that the banding changes, because that banding might not be realistic. And this is an actual live example that we had from the chairman, co-chair of the Disrep Technical Committee, who said that his house, that's the DG of the BPE, said he's on band A, but because his own transformer doesn't get as much as the feeder. Yes, the feeder has supply, but his transformer doesn't have that supply, and therefore, why should he be charged on that banding? So we agree with you, and that's what we are doing We are very conscious of that, and we would work in that direction. In terms of expecting new players, every customer, as is currently happening, is a consumer or customer of the electricity distribution company. So when you license, he moves to the new licensee, or when you create a new distribution company, they are all within your community. So as we said, Mr. President is the president of 200 million Nigerians, and his focus is to ensure every single Nigerian is metered. We have at least 13 million electricity customers, and the intention is to ensure that every customer that is unmetered within that bracket gets a meter before the end of his
Sorry,
first term.
just to clarify, are you saying that new licensees outside of the successor discos are eligible for the PMI?
Yes, certainly. Either they are existing customers of the DISCO who would move to a new licensee, or even if it's a new creation, but they are duly licensed, definitely there is room for consideration of that.
Okay, we'll take the next set of questions. And
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols duly observed. Sorry, good evening. Sorry, I didn't know where we've stayed here. Anyway, I'm so sorry. the room still looks like afternoon. For me, apologies. I have two questions. Meter is very, very important to me. Representing the GENCOs, because that's a measure that measures how much power is being consumed. So please permit me to ask my two questions. Number one, what is the source of funding for this PMI meter? Is it free from FGN to all? Number two, has there been an assessment of the previous metering programs from 2013 or even before 2013 till now? Because it seems that every regime comes with its own metering program. And the next regime will say, oh, the other one did not work. That's why we started our own. Have we looked at assessing why those programs failed so that we can avoid the pitfalls? I'm surprised to know that the NMMP actually succeeded 90% amid all the complaints from CBN. It was all over the papers that it was fraudulent and everything. But anyway, I'm happy to hear that it was over 90% successful.
in addition to a question, if is it free to customers, or customers have to pay, or the utilities have to pay back? Is it a loan or free meters? If it's a loan, who is it to? One last question, and then comment.
Yeah, thank you. Please, let me just express this concern. It's an observation, though. From your briefing, we're made to understand that this presidential max metering initiative have got a board put in place. And then from the composition of the board, I also overheard, if I'm correct, that you have a representative of the Commissioner of Forum of Commissioner of Finance. And I can tell you, even at our level as Commissioner of Power and Renewable Energy, we have had cause to discuss and express our concern over this initiative as to the right approach to stepping it down or to realizing it, meaning through the subnational. Yeah, we had a thought around it, and the Commissioner of Finance brought in not necessarily because they have monthly scheduled meeting in Abuja, but because this is going to be a funded initiative by the subnational. And they are, correctly so, the vehicle through which you can pull back this money or have states subscribe to. All right? But the technical expertise with which this initiative can be realized does not lie with them. I am not putting it or casting on the Commissioner of Finance of Benue State. He has never had any cause to share with me that there is this presidential initiative, he's interacting with them on meter, this is what they are saying, or what do you say, how do we position ourselves? He doesn't possess or have that technical or ministerial charge over it. So please, because you want to take feedback, It is our strong desire that as this board, settle down to work, if we must avoid the pitfall of the past, to make to represent to them our position, that a representative from the Forum of Commission of Power and Energy of Nigeria be included at the board so that we can express our state position and sentiments.
Thank you.
That will be fine.
So let me respond to some of the questions around that have been raised. Let me start with the issue around assessment. There has been detailed assessment done over the last year. I think it started, this is almost exactly the week it started last year. And we are happy that NAF actually has done a very fantastic work of assessing the past metering schemes, especially the NMMP as well, and also provided very good support into projecting what might come out of the next, or what the next metering schemes should look like. Apart from that, we've taken actual independent assessment by various consultants and internal studies within the PMI to ensure that we have the necessary information and responses that we could possibly use in planning for the PMI deployments. So we are hopeful that the wealth of knowledge from NAF and all the other parties will help us in avoiding the pitfalls of the NMMP and other programs previously that have had one challenge or the other. In terms of sourcing of financing, it's a bucket of financing from FAC, from DFIs, and various other, funding sources. But majorly, I guess FAC has contributed major financing, and we have other DFIs. In fact, we are trying to slow down just so that we understand the impact for the end user. But be rest assured, we want to ensure that no consumer pays for this meter, and the other financing considerations will be done along the way. It's still under cooking. One other thing I know is the fact that it might be embedded within the tariff so that people don't pay outrightly for the meter, and then it's spread over maybe a 10-20 year life plan. But again, as I said, we are the technical bit of it, and this is majorly cooked at the financing committee of the board and so on. In terms of
let me just interject. I'm so sorry. If it's cooked in the tariff and states are responsible for end user tariffs, how's that working? I'm still trying to get that correct.
By the time you move it to the states, that would be considered by whatever you're inheriting or whatever it is that you're going to move back to the holdco, right? So, that's for the professionals, but Commissioner Ayo might add a word or two around it. In terms of the composition, certainly above my pay grade, so I can't talk to how that was done, but I know that for certain, the desire to have the states contribute to this has always been there right from the start, and that is why, in fact, the NGF chair is also the chair of the PMI board. So in terms of the other individual composition of the board, that's certainly not something I can talk to, but I take it as a feedback, and certainly it will be escalated above. Maybe
we've got two final questions because time is fast spent. We'll take Oyo. So sorry, Ondo. Let me take Lagos. Okay, all right. Oyo first, Lagos, and then Undo's clarification, so we can end this.
Thank you. I'll be direct and straight with my question. There are deductions, according to what you've said, being made from the fact of each of the 36 states. And I'm sure that there was some formula that was deployed in determining what that deduction would be. Can you just tell me if my deductions are going to amount to exactly the number of meters that I need in my state? And if so, will you hand over those meters to me in my state for me to do what I want to do with them and deploy them as we see fit, since we have our own state electricity market?
Emphatically, I don't know. Emphatically, I don't know. I mean, that's certainly something. I mean, if you ask me the resistors and the transistors in the meter, I'll tell you, but not the percentages or the composition of that. I mean, that was certainly debated. I think I was there when it was debated, but I have absolutely no idea around the mechanics of the financing. Yes, certainly. I mean, yes.
Okay, thank you very much, and let me commend again. We need to engage deeply. Let me bring a few things to your notice. The configuration of our emerging markets differ, and I pray that for us, we need a lot of investment in metering equipment, and we're not going to be able to risk holding on for the disco or the franchisee to sort that problem out. The law that we have found ourselves that we have to operate as the house has, our own house has insisted, meter must come first. So I'm caught between what are your timelines? If I sign off and I'm about to achieve effectiveness, how do I ensure that I don't run foul of my law? My other activities that I need to take off. How many meters am I expecting? And based on the number I'm expecting, how do I plan for what, the gap that is in between? There are just plenty of questions that if I say I should go on, my colleagues will start saying, maybe I'm taking so much of their time. But please, is it possible that on a case by case, and looking at each market business case, this metering solution, as laudable as it is, can be streamlined to the need of each state, so that we don't have a scenario where this one solution fits all does not end up messing the global expectation of a better market for retail electricity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You said meters are going to be given free of charge. That is counterproductive. It's a recipe for failure in itself. You are taking $500 million from World Bank, and the burden becomes the burden of the country. And you have a simple mechanism. Pass these meters to the states. Let the states operate that system that will get the money back. You continue to revolve and you promote efficiency. Remember, the ATC&C challenge the country has is coming from some problems we know. Some people who pay nothing to enjoy electricity will continue to pay 5,000 naira a month, even though they consume 50,000 naira a month. So you have in the mix some of the customers who have chosen to lead a peaceable life, who want to pay their bills. They are the people who can demonstrate the readiness to pay. If you say pay 50% at the beginning, and in the next 6 months or 1 year, pay the rest through a system that the state governments can govern, that becomes more effective than to just give it free of charge. If you do that, the meters will end up in the hands of so many people who are never going to install. Thank you.
Okay, so let me correct the notion that you don't pay upfront for the meter. As I stated, that it's going to be modeled in the tariff, and that was why he stated that what happens when there's a transfer of the disco license. So, of course, it now gets transferred to the state operator. So what we don't want is the upfront payment. So, but again, that's something that maybe I would love to hear, as I said earlier. Going back to Honorable Commissioner Lagos, I think one of the things I picked in the meeting earlier is, as Commissioner Ayo stated, we might have to have a tripartite meeting based on a disco delineation. We'll have a meeting with Lagos and the 2 discos, meeting with Ibadan disco with the 5-6 states covered, Yola disco with the 6 states covered, and so on. That I'm taking a promise that we would have that stakeholder engagement as soon as possible. So, I mean, easier for us to start with my friend in Kogi, Benue, and so on that are surrounding Abuja, and Lagos, Ikeja Eco Disco. But certainly, I guess that's just about 12 meetings. So we would bunch the groups and have that meeting. In terms of timelines, as Commissioner Oyo stated, our plan was that meters start coming in by end of the year. Yet we are here. End of the year has beckoned upon us, and I can't talk to the fact that meters would arrive in December. But what I know for certain is the suppliers have committed that by this December, meters would arrive in the country, and when they get to the customer walls, hopefully within a 30 to 60 day period. So we are looking at January, February, as I stated earlier in my presentation. We would hold them to account because they have taken bank guarantees on that, and we would work with you in terms of that part of the law in which requires every customer to have a meter before he gets connected. So I do believe I've answered much as I can.
A round of applause for Mr. Lawal.
I extend the greetings of Oluvei and the SA to the President on Energy. Again, apologies for our inability to physically be here. I thank each and every one of you for the comments and insightful remarks. We would engage with you continuously. And thank you very much for having me, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Yeah. Maybe a quick photograph with the chairman. It's on record that you came.
This DJ makes you party harder. Party harder.
Okay. So we're at the close of day 2 today. Before we go, one of the biggest takeaway, Engineer Lawal, I think one of the biggest takeaway is that this forum will have to engage, forming a technical committee or a committee to engage with the PMI to really go through this, because there's a lot of questions that have not been answered. The funding, will customers pay? States have made their electricity laws. How would this work? You know, recovery of even the funds, right? So there's a lot of engagement, and I think one of the outcome of this meeting, with the permission of the chairman, is that we're going to set up a team to engage with the PMI, team of commissioners that would engage with the PMI in fashioning out this whole issue, so that it's clear from day one the role states need to play. The NGO will also support that process as well. But thank you once again. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, let me Thank you for a long day. I would like to bring on the Commissioner for Abia State, Honorable Ikechukwu Monde, to do the vote of thanks for today.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's been a long day. I will stand on the existing, well-established protocol. My job is just simple. Just say thank you for coming. So, so that's one of the simplest jobs. But I would say it's been an engaging day. For my experience in the electricity market in Nigeria, or electricity sector, that only achieve that when we collaborate. So I must thank everyone that have been here. I will start with thanking His Excellency for, coming here to charge us up at the beginning of the day. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you also, my colleague, the Honorable Commissioner for Energy in Lagos State, for being a good host. We've had a good day. And also my other colleagues. So tomorrow will be another day for another engagement. So as you go, I wish you safe journeys to your various locations. Thank you very much. Locations, some people are coming from. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Please note that the meal ticket has